Hello and welcome back to literature class. We are going to be reading chapter 6 in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. It's on page 59, Into the Forest. So where we left off in chapter 5 is that the McCready, as they called her, Mrs. McCready, was leading a tour through the house and they were trying to get out of her way. And they ended up in the wardrobe room and then they ended up going into the actual wardrobe. So that's where we're picking up from. Into the Forest, page 59. I wish the McCready would hurry up and take all these people away, said Susan presently. I'm getting horribly cramped. And what a filthy smell of camphor, said Edmund. That's what they put on the mothballs to keep the moths away. I expect the pockets of these coats are full of it, said Susan, to keep away moths. There you go. There's something sticking into my back, said Peter. Whew. And isn't it cold, said Susan. Now that you mention it, it is cold, said Peter. And hang it all, it's wet too. What's the matter with this place? I'm sitting on something wet. It's getting wetter every minute. He struggled to his feet. Let's get out, said Edmund. They've gone. Ooh, said Susan suddenly, and everyone asked her what was the matter. I'm sitting against a tree, said Susan, and look, it's getting light over there. By Jove, you're right, said Peter. And look there, and there. It's trees all around, and this wet stuff is snow. Why, I do believe we've gotten into Lucy's wood after all. And now there was no mistaking it, and all four children stood blinking in the daylight of a winter day. Behind them were coats hanging on pegs. In front of them were snow-covered trees. Peter turned at once to Lucy. I apologize for not believing you, he said. I'm sorry. Will you shake hands? Of course, said Lucy, and did. Now notice how different Peter's apology is from Edmund's. Edmund said, oh, okay, fine, you were right. And then he ended up not even admitting it. The first thing Peter does when he realizes that he was wrong is truly apologize. He's really actually sorry and ask if she'll forgive him. That's what will you shake hands, will you forgive and make up. So that tells you something about Peter's character, just like it told you something about Edmund's character. And Lucy forgives quickly, so she seems to be proving that she's such a kind person, very virtuous. And now, said Susan, what do we do next? Do, said Peter. Why, go and explore the wood, of course. Ugh, said Susan, stamping her feet. It's pretty cold. What about putting on some of those coats? They're not ours, said Peter doubtfully. I'm sure nobody would mind, said Susan. It isn't as if we wanted to take them out of the house. We shan't even take them out of the wardrobe. I never thought of that, Sue, said Peter. Of course, now you put it that way, I see. No one could say you had bagged a coat, stolen a coat, as long as you leave it in the wardrobe where you found it. So they feel bad about taking the coats, but they said, well, technically, we're not even taking them out of the wardrobe, right? We're not stealing them. So, and I suppose this whole country is in the wardrobe. They immediately carried out Susan's very sensible plan. The coats were rather too big for them, so that they came down to their heels, and looked more like royal robes than coats when they had put them on. But they all felt a good deal warmer, and each thought the others looked better in their new get-ups, and more suitable to the landscape. So they were dressed for summer in England, and now they're in the middle of a magical wood, so the fur coats kind of fit them more. We can pretend we are Arctic explorers, said Lucy. This is going to be exciting enough without pretending, said Peter, as he began leading the way forward into the forest. There were heavy, darkish clouds overhead, and it looked as if there might be more snow before night. I say, began Edmund presently, oughtn't we to be bearing a bit more to the left, that is, if we are aiming for the lamppost? Uh-oh. He had forgotten for the moment that he must pretend never to have been in the wood before. The moment the words were out of his mouth, he realized that he had given himself away. So now he's showing that he actually has been there before and he lied about it earlier. Everyone stopped. Everyone stared at him. Peter whistled. So you really were here, he said. That time Lou said she met you in here. And you made out she was telling lies. There was a dead silence. Well, of all the poisonous little beast, said Peter, and he shrugged his shoulders and said no more. There seemed indeed no more to say, and presently the four resumed their journey. But Edmund was saying to himself, I'll pay you all out for this, you pack of stuck-up, self-satisfied prigs. So Edmund's insulting them in his head and said, I'll pay you back for this. What is he paying them back for? He lied, and they were angry at him for lying. And he's mad at them for being mad at him, right? But he did something wrong, so they're rightfully angry with Edmund. But he doesn't see it this way. So he's not sorry. He's just mad they're insulting him. And he's not even sorry for lying. He's just mad he got caught. Where are we going anyway? Said Susan, chiefly for the sake of changing the subject. I think Lou ought to be the leader, said Peter. Goodness knows she deserves it. Where will you take us, Lou? What about going to see Mr. Tumnus, said Lucy. He's the nice fawn I told you about. Everyone agreed to this, and off they went, walking briskly and stamping their feet. Lucy proved a good leader. At first she wondered whether she would be able to find the way, but she recognized an odd-looking tree on one place and a stump in another, and brought them on to where the ground became uneven and into the little valley, and at last to the very door of Mr. Tumnus's cave. But there was a terrible surprise. There a terrible surprise awaited them. The door had been wrenched off its hinges and broken to bits. Inside the cave was dark and cold and had the damp feel and smell of a place that had not been lived in for several days. Snow had drifted in from the doorway and was heaped on the floor, mixed with something black, which turned out to be the charred sticks and ashes from the fire. Someone had apparently flung it about the room and then stamped it out. The crockery lay smashed on the floor, that means the tea set, and the picture of the fawn's father had been slashed into shreds with a knife. So they went to get Mr. Tumnus, but it wasn't just to get him, they destroyed his whole house purposely. This is a pretty good washout, said Edmund. Not much good coming here. What is this? Said Peter, stooping down. He had just noticed a piece of paper, which had been nailed through the carpet to the floor. Is there anything written on it? Asked Susan. Yes, I think there is, answered Peter, but I can't read it in this light. Let's go out into the open air. They all went out in the daylight and crowded round Peter as he read out the following words. The former occupant of these premises, the fawn, Tumnus, is under arrest and awaiting his trial on a charge of high treason. High treason means betraying her country. Against her Imperial Majesty, Jadis, Queen of Narnia, Chatelaine of Cair Paravel, Empress of the Lone Islands, etc. That means so on. Also comforting her said Majesty's enemies, harboring spies, harboring means taking them in, and fraternizing, being friendly with humans. Signed, Morgram, Captain of the Secret Police. Long live the Queen. The children stared at each other. I don't know that I'm going to like this place after all, said Susan. Who is this Queen, Lou? Said Peter. Do you know anything about her? She isn't a real queen at all, answered Lucy. She's a horrible witch, the White Witch. Everyone, all the wood people, hate her. She has made an enchantment over the whole country so that it is always winter here and never Christmas. I wonder if there's any point in going on, said Susan. I mean, it doesn't seem particularly safe here, and it looks as if it won't be much fun either. And it's getting colder every minute, and we brought nothing to eat. What about just going home? Oh, but we can't, said Lucy suddenly. Don't you see? We can't just go home, not after this. It is all on my account that the poor fawn has gotten into this trouble. He hid me from the witch and showed me the way back. That is what it means by comforting the Queen's enemies and fraternizing with the humans. We simply must try to rescue him. So Lucy said, we have to save him because it's my fault he's been arrested. I'm the human they're talking about. A lot we could do, said Edmund, when we haven't even gotten anything to eat. So Edmund doesn't care that he told the White Witch about the fawn, and this fawn, obviously his house was destroyed. He's been arrested because of something Edmund's done. And now Edmund's just thinking about food. He doesn't feel bad. Shut up, you, said Peter, who was still very angry with Edmund. What do you think, Susan? But probably still not very nice to tell someone to shut up, right? I have a horrid feeling that Lou is right, said Susan. I don't want to go a step further, and I wish we'd never come. But I think we must try to do something for Mr. whatever his name is. I mean, the fawn. That's what I feel too, said Peter. I'm worried about having no food with us. I'd vote for going back and getting something from the larder. Only there doesn't seem to be any certainty of getting into this country again when once you've got out of it. I think we'll have to go on. So do I, said both girls. If only we knew where the poor chap was in prison, said Peter. So Peter wanted to go back into the house and get food and then come back, but he says, well, there's no guarantee we can get back through the wardrobe. We don't really know how the magic works, and we can't control it. They were all still wondering what to do next when Lucy said, look, there's a robin with such a red breast. It's the first bird I've seen here. I say, I wonder, can birds talk in Narnia? It almost looks as if it wanted to say something to us. Then she turned to the robin and said, please, can you tell us where Tumnus the fawn has been taken to? As she said this, she took a step towards the bird. It at once flew away, but only as far as to the next tree. There it perched and looked at them very hard, as if it understood all they had been saying. Almost without noticing that they had done so, the four children went a step or two nearer to it. At this, the robin flew away again to the next tree, and once more looked at them very hard. You couldn't have found a robin with a redder chest or a brighter eye. Do you know, said Lucy, I really believe he means us to follow him. I've an idea he does, said Susan. What do you think, Peter? Well, we might as well try it, answered Peter. The robin appeared to understand the matter thoroughly, so that means completely. It kept going from tree to tree, although a few yards ahead of them, but always so near that they could easily follow it. In this way it led them on, slightly downhill. Wherever the robin stood, a little shower of snow would fall off the branch. Presently the clouds parted overhead, and the winter sun came out, and the snow all around them grew dazzlingly bright. They had been traveling in this way for about half an hour, with the two girls in front, when Edmund said to Peter, if you're not still too high and mighty to talk to me, I've something to say which you'd better listen to. What is it? Asked Peter. Hush, not so loud, said Edmund. There's no good frightening the girls. But have you realized what we're doing? What? Said Peter, lowering his voice to a whisper. We're following a guide we know nothing about. How do we know which side that bird is on? Why shouldn't it be leading us into a trap? That's a nasty idea. Still, a robin, they're good birds in all the stories I've ever read. I'm sure a robin wouldn't be on the wrong side. If it comes to that, which is the right side? How do we know that the fawns are in the right and the queen, yes, I know we've been told she's a witch, is in the wrong? We don't really know anything about either. The fawn saved Lucy. He said he did, but how do we know? And there's another thing too. Has anyone the least idea of the way home from here? Great Scott, said Peter. I hadn't thought of that. And no chance of dinner either, said Edmund. Now notice, when he talks about which side is the right side, maybe you don't know, but there's been a lot of clues to show you which side is the right side. Right? The fawn felt bad and about, possibly kidnapping her and giving her to the White Witch, and he ended up taking her back and delivering her safely home. So Lucy can see that she got home safely and the fawn didn't do anything to her. And now she can see that the fawn was arrested because of him saving her, right? So she should know that the fawn is good. And Edmund, remember his interaction with the White Witch? The White Witch almost killed him. So he knows that she's a witch because he gave him magical food from the dropper. So they know that she really is a witch. And he saw how evil and mean she was to him at first. So can you figure out what the right side is, even though you might not know everything? I think so.